Hi, this is Ed Fitzpatrick. If you enjoy local politics as much as I do, be sure to join our friends at Rhode Island PBS for the show A Lively Experiment. Hosted by Jim Hummel, the weekly series features journalists, pundits, and politicians debating the stories and issues that matter most to us Rhode Islanders. Tune in to A Lively Experiment and be part of the conversation. Fridays at 7 p.m. on Rhode Island PBS and wherever you get your podcasts. From the Boston Globe, this is Rhode Island Report. I'm Ed Fitzpatrick. Welcome back to the podcast where we bring you big conversations from our very small state. A Tufts University PhD candidate was arrested and physically restrained by 6 immigration officers near her apartment in Somerville. A Columbia University student is facing deportation for his role in pro-Palestinian campus protests. And closer to home, a Brown medicine kidney doctor was deported to Lebanon. What is going on? And what kind of rights do green card and visa holders have here in the United States? Deborah Gonzalez, director of the Immigration Clinic at Roger Williams University School of Law, is here to explain. Professor Deborah Gonzalez, thank you for talking with us today.
It's my pleasure to be here.
What's the big picture here? What's happening here?
We're deporting Muslims. Right? I think that if you stop and think about what this administration had done under Trump 1, which was this whole, let's stop the migration of Muslims into the United States, it feels like there's a targeting towards Muslims. We're going to go after them and we're going to come up with some old law or some unused statute to find a reason to deport them.
So you're the director of the Immigration Clinic at Roger Williams University School of Law. How long have you been doing immigration law?
As an attorney, I have been practicing law either 16 or 17 years. And before that, I was a paralegal in an immigration firm for 18 years. So the majority of my adult life has been working with the immigrant population.
And have you ever seen anything like this?
No. I mean, not like this, where, people are being kidnapped and arrested and people who have green cards are being deported. Right after 9/11, right, there was the Syrian registry or, the Muslim registry, where a lot of people that were from predominantly Muslim countries were being required to register with immigration. And that, at the time, was super controversial, because no one ever had to register, even though it's in the statute. So there's a statute that's been in the Immigration Nationality Act for a long time, but it's never been enforced. But it was enforced right after 9/11, and now it's being enforced again.
So let's start by talking about Dr. Rasha Alawea, the Brown medicine kidney doctor. Federal authorities say they deported her to Lebanon because she had attended a funeral service for a leader of Hezbollah, and she had photos on her phone of Hezbollah fighters and martyrs and Iran's supreme leader. The doctor had been studying in the United States for 6 years, and she had a valid H-1B visa. So how could she have been denied re-entry to the United States and deported?
Dr. Alawea had what is called a non-immigrant visa. So a non-immigrant visa means that someone has a visa to live inside the United States or to be inside the United States for a period of time. An H-1B allows someone to be in the United States working in a specialty occupation, and in her case, she was a doctor, for a period of up to 6 years with 3 years increments at a time. The reason why she was not allowed to reenter is because she was at an airport, which is a border. So people generally think of the border as, the southern border with Mexico and Texas, California, or the northern border, with Canada and the United States. But every international airport is a border. And at the border, at any border, if you are a non-U.S. citizen or someone who is not a lawful permanent resident, which she was not, the Constitution does not attach. So she didn't have the right to any due process as we think of it.
And did she have constitutional rights like First Amendment rights or freedom of speech or Fourth Amendment rights against unreasonable search and seizure? That's one question I got when I wrote the story. People saying, how could they take her phone? And, didn't she have the right to have photos on her phone?
During the time that she was inside of the United States, so while she was living in Providence and practicing and teaching at Brown, yes, she had those rights because she was physically inside of the United States. People might say, well, the Boston airport is inside the United States. Yes, it is, except for legal purposes. You're not inside of the United States until CBP has cleared you, Customs Border Patrol has cleared you. She had not yet been cleared. So she did not have a Fourth Amendment right to search and seizure because the Constitution does not apply to her. She's not inside of the United States. She does not have lawful permanent residence. She is not a United States citizen.
What if she had refused to show immigration officers her cell phone at Logan?
So any immigrant that's coming into the United States has the burden to prove that they should be or can be allowed into the United States. And these are called issues of inadmissibility, meaning you can't be admitted into the United States unless you prove you can. So if she had not given her phone, CBP might have said, well, you haven't met your burden that you are not inadmissible, and therefore we can't admit you. So they likely wouldn't have allowed her in, even if she had not given her phone, because they would have said she had not met her burden.
So even though she had been working and studying here for 6 years, she has to be readmitted every time she leaves the country.
That's right. Every time she leaves, as someone who is a non-immigrant, she needs to go through the process of being admitted every single time.
So she was in a precarious position when she shows up at Logan.
In my opinion, she was, yes.
And I saw the White House reposted a Department of Homeland Security message about the doctor, adding a photo of President Trump waving from inside a fast food drive-through window that reads, "Come back soon." What do you make of that?
I think that's just gross. I think that's just making fun at the issue here. Here we had a kidney transplant doctor who I recently learned from a friend. She was only the third doctor in the entire state of Rhode Island that does this work. To have this woman not be allowed back into the United States is a detriment to the state. It's a detriment to her patients and her students. And I think that's just gross for people to be making fun of such a thing.
The legal director of Muslim Advocates is now representing the doctor's cousin who lives in the United States and has filed a petition with the U.S. District Court. What legal options are available to them now?
As it relates to the doctors being able to fight the deportation, the doctor was removed under expedited removal under Section 235 of the Immigration Nationality Act, and those are not judicially reviewable removals.
So the chances for returning are, it sounds like they're slim.
In my opinion, yes.
After the doctor was deported, Brown University advised international community members, including visa holders and permanent residents, to postpone travel outside the country. Do you agree with that guidance?
I absolutely do, and I have been telling anyone who will listen to me to do the same.
Yeah, what are you advising your immigration law clinic clients?
I mean, I'm telling people don't travel. Even domestically, I mean, I think, I got a call the other day from a client who wanted to go to Florida. He was going to fly to Fort Lauderdale. I believe that to be an international airport. And I'm telling anyone who is flying into an international airport, don't do it, because you're at a border when you're at an international airport.
We'll have more with Deborah Gonzalez after a quick break. When you want to go beyond the headlines, let me recommend Rhode Island PBS Weekly. Rhode Island PBS Weekly is an award-winning news magazine broadcast that gives you the full story, powered by investigative journalism and narrative storytelling. New episodes of Rhode Island PBS Weekly drop Sundays at 7:30 p.m. on Rhode Island PBS. Watch past episodes at ripbs.org/weekly. That's ripbs.org/weekly. Now let's talk about Rümeysa Öztürk, a 30-year-old Turkish national in the United States on a student visa. She's a PhD student at Tufts. She was just arrested by masked federal immigration agents on a Somerville street and sent to a detention facility in Louisiana. Your reaction?
That was a kidnapping. This woman was absolutely kidnapped. There was no one around her. She had no one to tell. When you see the video, it doesn't look like the officer is showing any sort of badge. It seems like they accost her and she starts to step back. It's quite scary what happened to her.
She had written an opinion essay with 3 other students in the Tufts student newspaper, critical of the university for not sanctioning Israel over the war in Gaza. So is that being criminalized?
I think her freedom of speech is being criminalized. And different from the doctor, right, the student is inside of the United States. Therefore, that First Amendment right does attach. She's been admitted to the United States, the student I'm referring to. She's inside of the United States. That First Amendment, Fourth Amendment, Fifth Amendment due process all attaches.
A Department of Homeland Security spokesperson claimed Ozturk engaged in support of Hamas, a terror group designated by the United States behind the October 7th attack on Israel. Is there support for that claim?
I don't know what information DHS has, but it seems to me if you take the student, the doctor, and then the student from Colombia, all of these are Muslims, and they are people who are going against this administration. And so it seems as though our new government has taken the position that if you're inside the United States, you no longer have a First Amendment right.
Secretary of State Marco Rubio determined Ozturk's alleged activities would have potentially serious adverse foreign policy consequences and would compromise a compelling U.S. foreign policy interests. What do you say to that?
Again, I think the government's fishing. I really do. I think this is a fishing expedition to scare students in various universities into submission. Don't speak out against our administration or we will find a reason to arrest you.
What are the implications of the government detaining people who express views that they disagree with?
People view the United States as the country of freedom and liberty, and it's not feeling that way these days.
Why should those of us who don't have visas or green cards be concerned about what's happening? What are the implications beyond immigration cases?
I mean, I think it'll eventually happen to U.S. citizens, right? U.S. citizens should not think that just because this is happening to immigrants, that it wouldn't happen to any one of us who was born inside the United States. I mean, if you take the student from Colombia, for example, Mr. Khalil, he was a lawful permanent resident. He had the right to live in this country. Immigration had vetted him and his family and said, yes, you may live in the United States. And now suddenly he speaks out or he protests against the policies of this government, and now he's going to get arrested?
Yeah, let's talk about Mahmoud Khalil, a prominent activist who played a key role in demonstrations against Israel at Columbia University last spring. His lawyer says he was living in the United States as a permanent resident with a green card, and an immigration agent said they were revoking that. Can they do that?
Not without a hearing, right? He has the right to go before an immigration judge and have a hearing to hear why it is that they're trying to revoke him. They can't do that without him going through deportation proceedings.
I also want to ask you about the Trump administration's use of a 1798 law to deport the alleged Venezuelan gang members. DOJ's asking the Supreme Court to lift Judge Boasberg's order, calling for a temporary halt to the removals pending a legal challenge to Trump's invocation of the Alien Enemies Act. I thought that law was supposed to be used for wartime.
It is supposed to be used during wartime, and this administration, this president, is taking the position that Venezuelans coming to the United States are invading us, right? And he uses the word invading very strategically because that's how he's going to be able to get away with saying this is being used during wartime. We are at a war with this invasion of these Venezuelans who are part of this, multinational gang. And so I think that's how he's justifying, and the people in the Department of State and Homeland Security are justifying the deportation, the detentions, and then, these flights that are going against federal court orders.
So what do you foresee happening when it goes before the Supreme Court?
Wow. I am hopeful. I have to be hopeful that the Supreme Court will know what wartime means, and that wartime means something than just someone envisioning or imagining some invasion of immigrants coming from a country that this president doesn't agree with. I would hope that the Supreme Court would say wartime means that there is a battle between two countries. That is not what we have here.
Republicans have taken steps to try to impeach not only Judge Boasberg in the Venezuelan case, but also Rhode Island's own U.S. District Court Chief Judge Jack McConnell, who issued an injunction blocking the Trump administration's sweeping federal spending freeze. What do you make of these attacks on the judiciary?
Again, that's really scary to me because we have three branches of government under our Constitution for a reason, right? The three branches of government is to make sure that someone is checking the other branch. If we start to impeach justices because the administration doesn't agree with the decisions that they're making, that goes strictly against our form of government, which is having these three branches that are checks on the other branch. That scares me. That really does scare me. And it should scare anyone who lives inside of the United States. Your political views should not come before what our Constitution says. We've all believed, at least I have, that these three branches of government make a lot of sense. And many countries that are not the United States have tried to follow our way of government. If we go against that, then we're no better than Venezuela.
What did you think of Supreme Court Chief Justice John Roberts speaking up about those attacks on the judiciary?
Hallelujah. It's about time. It is about time that the Supreme Court speaks out. I understand why they don't. But I was really pleased to see that someone in the Supreme Court is saying, well, hold on a minute. We're not going to allow this to happen because rule of law, true rule of law, is going to dictate here and not what this president envisions rule of law to be.
Harvard University just shook up its Center for Middle East Studies, and Yale University removed a pro-Palestinian staff member as colleges continue to face pressure from the Trump administration to change how they approach the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. So what's it like to be in academia these days?
It's a scary time. It makes me sad to see universities such as Harvard and Yale that have a ton of money bow down to this administration. That makes me sad, and it scares me. I'm at little old Roger Williams University, and we still have a Center for the Race and the Law, and I'm so proud to say that. And I'm really hopeful that our dean and president and board of trustees are not going to do away with our Center of the Race and the Law, because it's important that we remember where we came from as a nation.
I see the Trump administration's considering targeting the citizens of as many as 43 countries as part of a new ban on travel to the U.S., and that would be broader than the restrictions imposed during his first term. What would be the impact of that?
Well, first off, there are many. One is an economic one. The United States clearly has programs to bring in people from other countries so that we could diversify our economy, our technology, our medical field, right? Not only to have people from diverse backgrounds, but because people from diverse backgrounds bring a different way of thinking in the industries in which they participate. I think there'll be an economic impact to that. There'll definitely be an impact on the way the United States will be able to grow as a nation, right? In terms of our technology, in terms of our roadways, in terms of our medicine. I mean, I saw a video of Japan the other day that has public transportation of trains upside down on this little bridge. And I thought, wow, our public transportation is terrible inside the United States.
It doesn't sound like the MBTA up in
Does
Boston.
not. Why don't we have those folks come into the United States? I personally think that this president is trying to make America white again.
If people are concerned about the detentions and deportations, what can they do?
They should call their senators and congressmen and tell them that they voted for them, right? I've questioned myself every time I see a Republican senator or representative that's in favor of an executive order. And my question is, why did your constituents need you? Why are you there? Because if you're there just to say it's okay for all of these executive orders to go into place, then why is the taxpayer paying your salary? Why is the taxpayer paying your health insurance? You should resign and let everything happen by executive order. People need to vote. People need to speak out. And we can't be afraid to speak. We cannot be afraid to speak.
Professor Deborah Gonzalez, thank you for joining us today.
It was my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Rhode Island Report is a production of the Boston Globe in collaboration with Rhode Island PBS. Today's episode was produced by Megan Hall. Audio mixing and mastering by Marissa Ewing of Hemlock Creek Productions. Our music is from APM. Be sure to follow us on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen. I'm Ed Fitzpatrick. See you next week. Looking to binge watch all your favorite PBS shows? You need Rhode Island PBS Passport, Masterpiece, Antiques Roadshow, Rhode Island PBS Weekly, and many more. Watch them all, anytime, and from any streaming device. Learn more about this member benefit at ripbs.org/passport. That's ripbs.org/passport.